Before we begin, tell us in the comments which city and country are you watching from and what time is it there right now. Drop it below, because this tale will make you see humanity's place among predators very differently. The twin moons of Arcanol hung low in the alien sky, their pale light scattering across a vast expanse of bioluminescent trees that swayed with no wind. Jace Orland crouched beside the flicker of his makeshift fire, the glow doing little to keep the shadows at bay. He'd been on this moon for 9 days now. His ship, a survey skiff, lay half-buried 2 kilometers away, nose crumpled from the impact, its comms fried beyond repair. The beacon still blinked, but it could be weeks before anyone in Terran command even noticed it hadn't moved. 9 days of ration bars and purified water. 9 days of being watched. The predators came at night, always at night. They weren't subtle. Glowing streaks traced along their spines, eyes like molten gold peering from the dense neon fog. Jace had counted at least 7, maybe 8, though they never came close enough all at once for him to be sure. They circled just beyond the reach of his firelight, low growls and soft clicks echoing through the bioluminescent woods. Starved things, gaunt, their ribs visible even beneath thick plates of scaled hide, their movements jerky with hunger. He'd killed one on his second night, a younger one, bold enough to lunge when the wind shifted, but he hadn't used the carcass. Too much noise, too much blood. The others had dragged it away into the shadows, and their low, rumbling calls had changed that night. Less cautious, more desperate. Now they were back again, their glowing eyes weaving through the mist as their forms circled. Jace sat on his haunches beside the fire, chewing the last bite of a ration bar. He swallowed, wiped his mouth, and looked toward the shadows. "They're going to keep coming," he muttered, under his breath, voice low, almost amused. His hand brushed the side of his pack, feeling the weight of his remaining supplies. Maybe it's time to try something different. Because on a world like Arcanol, fighting everything wasn't survival. Sometimes survival meant breaking the rules the predators understood. He dug into his pack, pulling free 2 sealed protein packs and a small unmarked thermal case. He cracked one open, the scent of synthetic meat filling the humid air. The circling shapes froze for a moment, their golden eyes narrowing, nostrils flaring at the scent. Jace didn't move quickly, no sudden gestures. He pulled the rations apart, set them carefully on a flat rock near the edge of the firelight, and leaned back on his heels, his palms resting open against his knees. The glowing shapes shifted in the mist. One, taller than the rest, its spines arched in jagged ridges, took a cautious step forward. The faint light revealed more of it now, elongated limbs ending in hooked claws, scaled plates covering its shoulders and chest, a long tail that twitched with every breath. Its ribs showed with each inhale. Starvation had dulled its usual caution. Jace's gray eyes tracked it, unblinking. His breathing stayed slow, steady. The predator sniffed the air, then looked past him at the fire, a low growl rolling from its throat. Behind it, more pairs of glowing eyes edged closer, the whole pack gathering near the fire's halo. Jace didn't speak, didn't threaten. He simply pointed once slowly, at the food on the rock. Then he leaned back a little farther, his hands still open, his posture loose. The lead predator bared its teeth in something that could have been warning, could have been uncertainty. But the hunger won. It stepped into the light, grabbed one of the protein packs in its jaws, and retreated 2 paces. The others waited, watching, low clicks passing between them. The lead predator dropped the pack on the ground, sniffed it again, then tore it open. The smell, rich, heavy, almost alive, sent the rest of the pack lurching forward in unison. They didn't lunge at Jace, they lunged at the food. Jace stayed perfectly still, his eyes calm, watching as they devoured the rations in harsh tearing bites. One of the smaller ones, younger, still with a faint bluish glow along its spine instead of gold, paused halfway through, its molten eyes locking on him. It didn't growl, didn't bare its teeth, it just stared. And then as the last scraps vanished, the pack pulled back, circling again, but slower this time, quieter. Not stalking, observing. Jace leaned forward slightly, picking up another sealed pack from his case. He tore it open, laid it on the same rock, and sat back again. The pack leader's eyes tracked him, narrow but no longer hostile. By the time the twin moons hit their peak, the predators weren't circling him like prey anymore. They were circling him like something they hadn't decided on yet. The next morning, the pack was still there, not in the trees, not in the shadows, but sprawled in a loose semicircle near the remains of the campfire. They didn't sleep like Terran creatures, no curling up, no stillness. Their heads jerked at every sound, their spines flickering faint pulses of light as they breathed. But they hadn't left. Jace crouched near the embers, warming his hands as he glanced at them. The leader lifted its head, molten eyes meeting his for a long, still moment. Then, with a low, throaty click, it settled its head back on its forearms. Jace smirked faintly beneath his hood. "All right," he muttered softly, pulling another protein pack from his case. "Let's see how far we can take this." He tore the pack in half, tossing one piece toward the leader and placing the other near the younger one with the bluish glow. The rest of the pack watched, tense, as their leader took its portion first before the others crept forward. They didn't snap at him. They didn't bare their teeth. For the first time in 9 days, the sound of their growls wasn't a warning. It was something closer to contentment. Jace leaned back on his heels, watching them feed in silence. His gray eyes narrowed slightly as his thoughts shifted, calculating. "Food first," he murmured. "Then trust, then something else." The pack leader's ears twitched at his voice. Its molten eyes met his again, unblinking, as if it understood more than it should. Because on Arcanol, survival wasn't just about who had claws and who didn't. Sometimes it started with a shared meal and ended with something that could change the balance of a world. The moons had set, and the world of Arcanol was cloaked in the faint glow of its bioluminescent canopy. The predator pack remained where they had lingered through the night, their ribs rising and falling in shallow rhythm as they dozed with one eye always open. Jace Orlin sat by the cooling embers of his fire, running his fingers along the edge of a scavenged blade, not sharpening it, just tracing the grooves, listening to the forest's constant pulse. The predators didn't trust him, not yet. They tolerated him because of the food, but tolerance could vanish with a single wrong move or a single missed meal. On Arcanol, nothing stayed still for long. He reached into his pack, pulling out one more sealed ration pack, his last. With a slow motion, he tore it in half, tossing one piece toward the pack leader and another toward the younger one with the bluish glow along its spine. The leader's molten gold eyes narrowed, but it didn't snarl. Instead, it let out a low, rattling hum, not aggression, but something that made the others hesitate, waiting their turn. Jace watched closely. The leader wasn't just bigger. It controlled the rhythm of the pack. The others fed only when it gave that subtle hum, like a signal. They moved as one, but only because it allowed it. And for Jace, that was the key. Because if he could speak to the leader without words, the rest of the pack would follow, not as predators but as something new. The morning hunt came quickly. The pack roused as the first glow of Arcanol's dawn filtered through the trees, shafts of pale green light slicing the mist. Their spines flickered faintly as they rose, stretching lean limbs and snapping their jaws in unison. The leader paced ahead, its head low, tail twitching as it scanned the undergrowth. Jace followed at a measured distance. He didn't try to lead, he simply watched, letting his steps mirror theirs, his breath syncing with the pauses they took to sniff the air or listen for distant tremors. At first, they ignored him, but the younger one, the bluish-marked juvenile, began glancing back more often, as if trying to understand why he didn't make the mistakes prey usually made. When the first sign of a target came, a low rumble beneath the soil, faint but steady, the pack froze. The leader's spines flared, signaling the others to spread wide along a crescent pattern. The soil trembled again, and from beneath it, a segmented creature as long as a transport skiff emerged, its translucent carapace flashing pale light as it churned upward in search of surface prey. The pack crouched, ready to strike, but Jace's eyes were already scanning the terrain. The ground here was soft, riddled with fissures, the bioluminescent roots of the towering trees weaving through it like veins. The creature would dive if startled, but if it dove wrong, into the wrong fissure, it could be trapped. Jace crouched low, grabbing a shard of dark stone. He tapped it twice, sharply, against a root near the leader's position. The sound cut through the low hum of the forest. The leader's ears twitched. Its molten eyes flicked to him. Jace tapped again, this time in a slow, deliberate rhythm. 3 short pulses, a pause, 2 long ones. The leader tilted its head, spines dimming slightly, as if curious rather than hostile. Then Jace moved. Not toward the target, but toward the fissure, stepping lightly, his movements controlled. The leader watched, then let out a low hum, a note that rippled through the rest of the pack. They shifted their stance, repositioning subtly, their crescent shape tightening around the fissure Jace had marked. The segmented creature finally burst free of the soil, a shriek echoing as its translucent plates caught the dawn light. The pack lunged as one, not wild, not chaotic, but precise. Their coordinated assault drove the creature backward, right into the unstable fissure. The soil gave way instantly, roots tearing as the beast plunged into the depths, its shrieks fading as it crashed into the subterranean void below. The pack didn't feast immediately. They gathered at the fissure's edge, their spines glowing faintly as the leader approached Jace. It stood mere paces from him now, its golden eyes locking on his calm, unflinching stare. Jace crouched slightly, holding the shard of stone flat in his palm, then tapped it once more. 2 short pulses, a pause, 1 long. The leader's spines flickered in response, just once, before it turned back to its pack and released a soft, resonant hum. Only then did they descend into the fissure to feed. For the first time, they hadn't just hunted together, they'd hunted his way. That night, the predators didn't linger in the shadows. They bedded down near his fire, sprawling in a loose circle around him with their tails curled inward. The juvenile, the bluish glow one, rested closest, its faint rhythmic breath syncing with his as if by instinct. The leader stayed at the far edge, its molten eyes never fully closing, always fixed on him. Jace didn't sleep much either. He sat with his back against a glowing tree, fingers idly tapping the shard of stone against his knee in slow, deliberate rhythms. The pack shifted with each pattern, not quite understanding, but listening. By dawn, they had stopped circling him like prey altogether. They moved with him now, their limbs matching his pace, their spines dimming and flaring with the rhythms he tapped. The forest around them, the same forest that had hunted him 9 nights straight, had grown quieter, and that was when the distant roar shattered the calm. It rolled through the trees like thunder, shaking loose glowing spores from the towering canopies above. The pack froze, their spines dimming almost completely as the sound grew louder, closer. Even the leader, unflinching until now, lowered its head and released a low, uneasy growl. Jace stood slowly, scanning the tree line. The glow from the trees beyond trembled, the mist swirling unnaturally as something massive pushed through. A rival predator, bigger than the pack, taller than the trees. Its plated hide shimmered like molten glass, reflecting the twin moon's glow even in daylight. It moved with the heavy, deliberate confidence of something that had never lost a hunt. The pack backed away, their spines flickering in frantic pulses. The leader growled, low but strained, its molten gaze fixed on the giant approaching through the mist. Jace, however, didn't step back. He crouched, pressing his palm to the soil. He could feel the subtle vibrations beneath, the same network of roots and veins that had betrayed the segmented creature the day before. His gray eyes narrowed as he lifted the shard of stone again, tapping it against the earth in a new rhythm, slower, heavier, each pulse matching the rival predator's massive footfalls. The pack stilled, their spines dimmed. One by one, they turned their glowing eyes to him, because if he could make the ground itself carry his voice, he could make a predator bigger than all of them believe something worse had arrived. The roar echoed again, louder this time, reverberating through the roots and branches of the glowing forest. The mist rolled in waves as the massive predator pushed forward, its plated hide scraping against the towering trees and sending cascades of glowing spores into the air. Each heavy footfall left a faint crater in the soil, the vibrations traveling deep into the planet's veins. The pack around Jace Orlin huddled low, spines dimmed to faint flickers. Even the leader, the golden-eyed brute that had ruled the last 9 days of his exile, crouched closer to the earth, its growl low but uncertain. The bluish-glow juvenile edged near Jace's side, not out of trust alone, but because it sensed something in him the others didn't yet understand. Jace crouched low, fingers brushing along the moist soil, feeling the steady thrum of the predator's steps. The ground was alive here, woven with a web of roots and bioluminescent tendrils that amplified vibrations like nerves in a living organism. The giant approaching wasn't just a predator. It was a walking storm, disrupting everything in its path. Jace's gray eyes flicked toward the pack leader. The creature's molten stare met his, and for a moment they simply watched one another. Then, slowly, Jace raised the shard of dark stone he'd been using for days. He tapped it against the soil, 3 heavy pulses, a pause, 1 sharp strike, the rhythm carried into the roots, amplified by the ground itself. The pack leader's ears twitched, its spines flickering in a hesitant pattern. Jace repeated the rhythm, slower this time, letting the sound carry like distant thunder. The ground answered, the bioluminescent veins beneath their feet glowing faintly in time with each strike. The approaching predator stopped, its plated head tilted, molten glass plates shifting as it scanned the mist. It had felt that pattern before. The ground itself trembling not as prey, but as something greater, something that had made even apex hunters scatter. Jace glanced toward the bluish-glow juvenile, then back to the leader. He tapped again, shorter bursts this time, the cadence rising like a pulse quickening. The pack understood enough to act, their spines flared in sequence, each glow igniting and dimming in perfect time with the rhythm, turning their collective light into a living signal that pulsed through the fog. The rival predator hesitated, its stance shifting, its limbs dug deeper into the soil as it loosed a low, guttural rumble, not a challenge, but something closer to uncertainty. Jace moved first, not toward the predator, but sideways, slipping into the root's dense network, his fingers still tapping the stone as he vanished into the mist. The bluish juvenile followed immediately, its faint glow syncing with his rhythm. The rest of the pack moved in a crescent, their formation deliberate, herding the giant toward a basin where the ground sank into unstable marsh, its veins glowing faintly beneath the surface. The massive predator stepped forward again, slow, cautious. Its weight made the marsh quiver, the faint glow beneath its feet intensifying as pockets of gas hissed upward. The bioluminescent tendrils shivered like they were alive, and in a way, they were, reacting to the rhythmic pulses still carrying through the ground from Jace's strikes. The predator roared, louder this time, but the sound was drowned out by the sudden crack of the marsh beneath it. One massive limb plunged into the glowing muck, the surface tension breaking like thin glass. It thrashed, snapping its plated tail as its claws tore at the soil, but every movement sent new tremors through the veins below, each one sparking another glow, another hiss of gas. Jace signaled sharply, his movements crisp and precise. The pack lunged, not to kill, but to drive. They darted along the marsh's edges, snapping at the predator's exposed limbs, their glowing spines flaring and dimming in perfect sync with Jace's rhythm. The combined pulses, from the ground, the pack, and Jace's strikes, built into a rolling thunder the rival predator couldn't ignore. For a moment, it tried to rise, slamming its plated limbs into the soil to leverage itself free, but the marsh buckled beneath it, the glowing tendrils tearing apart as pockets of gas ignited from the friction of its struggle. A gout of pale fire erupted skyward, casting everything in ghostly white light. The predator roared one final time as the marsh swallowed half its bulk, dragging it down into the glowing depths. The pack circled, growls low and synchronized, but none moved to finish the kill. They didn't need to. The planet was doing it for them. Jace stepped to the marsh's edge, his gray eyes fixed on the thrashing mass as it sank deeper. He crouched, pressing his palm flat to the soil, feeling the vibration slow. When the last tremor faded and the glow beneath the marsh dimmed, he rose and turned to the pack. The leader approached him, its molten gold eyes unblinking. For the first time, it lowered its head slightly, not in submission, not fully, but in acknowledgement. The bluish juvenile mirrored the motion, its soft glow pulsing faintly in time with Jace's steady breaths. Jace let the shard of stone drop into the soil. He didn't need it anymore. The rhythm was no longer just his. The pack had learned it. The ground had learned it. For the first time since he'd crashed on Arcanol, Jace Orlin wasn't just surviving with the predators, he was leading them. That night, the forest was silent. No distant roars. No shadows circling the camp. The predator pack lay sprawled around him like sentries, their spines dimmed to a soft, synchronized glow that pulsed in rhythm with the distant hum of the planet itself. Jace sat by the fire, his gray eyes reflecting the soft light as he stared into the mist beyond. He wasn't thinking about rescue anymore. Not yet. This wasn't just survival now, it was something bigger, something he hadn't planned but couldn't ignore. The planet had predators, it had rules, and somehow, without ever meaning to, he'd rewritten both. He glanced at the bluish juvenile, curled near his side. Its eyes opened briefly, meeting his, before closing again, as its breathing synced with the faint glow of its spines. Jace exhaled slowly, leaning back against the glowing tree. "Tomorrow," he murmured to himself. Barely audible over the soft hum of the forest, "we see just how far this goes." The leader's ears twitched at his voice. Its molten gaze flicked toward him, unreadable, before it lowered its head once more. Because sometimes, on a world where everything hunts, survival isn't about becoming the strongest hunter, it's about becoming the thing even hunters listen to. The morning on Arcanol began like no other since Jace Orlin's crash. The bioluminescent canopy glowed softly above, no longer pulsing in warning but in a steady rhythm that mirrored the predator pack's breathing. The usual distant calls of rival hunters were gone. The mist felt lighter, as if even the air itself had paused to watch. Jace stood at the edge of a ridge overlooking the forest basin. Below, the marsh where they had brought down the rival predator still steamed, its glowing veins dimming slowly as gas hissed from deep fractures in the soil. The pack stood with him. 7 figures now, 6 golden-spined adults and the bluish juvenile. They didn't circle him anymore. They stood beside him. The leader, a scarred brute with molten gold eyes, crouched closest, its head slightly lowered. Not submission, but acknowledgement. In the 9 days before their bond, it had circled him like prey. Now it waited for him to move first. Jace crouched, pressing his palm to the cool soil. He felt the faintest vibrations, not predators, but something mechanical. A rhythmic hum. Engines. Rescue. The faint glimmer of a Terran survey frigate cut through the mist high above, its beacon blinking as it began a slow descent. They had found the beacon from his wreck. They were coming to extract him at last. The pack shifted uneasily, their spines flickering faint pulses as they tracked the descending craft. The juvenile pressed closer to Jace, its soft blue glow brightening faintly, almost as if seeking reassurance. The leader released a low, guttural rumble, uncertain, questioning. Jace's gray eyes stayed fixed on the frigate's glow. He knew what the Terran crew would see when they landed. A lone human survivor standing among a pack of Arcanol's most feared predators. They wouldn't see allies, they'd see threats. And standard protocol on a hostile world was clear: eliminate anything that moved near an extraction. He rose slowly, adjusting the strap of his worn pack. His voice, when it came, was calm but low, spoken more to the pack than himself. Stay close, stay low, let them see you as mine. Because survival didn't end when the rescue arrived. Sometimes, the hardest part was making sure the rescuers didn't become another enemy. The frigate's landing thrusters roared as it touched down in the clearing below, flattening glowing ferns and sending spores swirling into the air. 2 Terran Marines emerged first, rifles raised, their visors glowing as they scanned the mist. Behind them, the retrieval officer, a tall woman in slate armor, raised a hand, signaling for a sweep. Jace stepped forward, deliberately slow, his hood pulled low but his hands raised slightly to show he carried no weapon. Behind him, the predator pack emerged from the tree line, their movements eerily silent, their spines dimmed almost entirely. The Marines froze instantly, rifles snapping toward the glowing shapes. Contact. Predators. Multiple. One barked, his voice cutting through the humid air. Hold fire. Jace's voice, calm but firm, carried across the clearing. The Marines hesitated, their visors tilting toward him as he descended the ridge. They're with me. They won't engage unless you force them. The retrieval officer stepped forward, her expression unreadable beneath her visor. With you, she repeated, her voice sharp through the comms. Or waiting for us to look away before they tear us apart. Jace stopped a few paces from her, lowering his hands but keeping his stance steady. 9 days. They hunted me. I fed them, trained them. Now they hunt with me. You fire first, you die first. That simple. The officer's visor tilted toward the pack. The predators stood perfectly still, their breathing slow, their glowing eyes fixed on her but not advancing. The bluish juvenile's spine pulsed faintly, its glow calm, not hostile. The officer finally lowered her weapon. Fine. But they stay at the perimeter. We extract you, not a menagerie. Jace's lips twitched in the faintest shadow of a smile. You extract me, they'll follow anyway. Better to leave the world believing we're one pack than start another fight. Because even rescue had rules, and on Arcanal, the pack was the only rule that mattered. The march to the frigate was silent, except for the soft hum of the engines and the distant calls of creatures deeper in the forest, none of which dared approach. The pack moved in perfect formation behind Jace, their spines dimmed, their glowing eyes sweeping the mist like disciplined scouts. The Marines kept their weapons low but ready, their grips tightening every time one of the predators twitched an ear or flicked a tail. The juvenile stayed nearest Jace's side, its soft glow brushing faint light against his boots. When they reached the ramp, the officer turned sharply, blocking the predator's advance. They don't come aboard, she said, her tone final. Jace paused, glancing back at the pack. The leader tilted its head, molten gaze meeting his as it released a low, rumbling hum. The juvenile echoed it softly, a higher, gentler note. Jace crouched briefly, pressing his palm to the soil one last time. 3 short taps, 1 long. The same rhythm he had used to earn their trust, the same rhythm that had made the forest itself bend to their movements. The leader's spines pulsed faintly in reply, as did the rest of the pack, their glowing patterns syncing one last time with his. He rose and stepped up the ramp, his voice low but steady. They'll hold the ridge until I signal. They know the rhythm. That's enough. The officer said nothing as the ramp closed, the pack watching silently from the mist as the frigate's engines roared. From orbit, the planet shrank beneath them, its glowing forests fading into a swirl of mist and twin moons. Jace sat in the quiet hum of the cabin, his gray eyes still fixed on the viewport. One of the Marines finally broke the silence. So, 9 days with Arcanal's apex predators. How'd you survive? Jace leaned back, his voice calm as ever. Didn't fight harder. Didn't run faster. Just listened longer. Fed them. Made them trust me. And then, he glanced at the Marine, a faint glint in his eye. Made the world trust us. The Marine stared at him, then muttered, that's not survival, that's something else. Jace turned back to the viewport, watching the twin moons vanish as they broke orbit. His voice was almost a whisper. No, that's what happens when a human stops trying to be prey, and teaches predators what to fear. If this story hit you, like and share it, and tell us in the comments, did Jace tame the predators, or did they tame him? Subscribe, because the next HFY legend is already waiting, just beyond the stars.